everyone, and welcome back to another video about finances and being a content creator. I've started doing some of these videos recently because I feel like they are really important for transparency and hopefully to give you insight and assistance into seeing what a life of a content creator actually is like, and specifically when it comes to finances. Because as I've mentioned previously, finances can kind of be that big elephant in the room and can be a little bit of a taboo subject. I know a lot of content creators don't really like to talk about their finances, and I think that that's fair enough. It can be, or it can feel like a very vulnerable thing to do, but I think as I've started to open up a little bit more about my finances, it feels a little bit easier now and kind of makes me feel good in a way, because it does kind of give you that insight if you're an aspiring content creator, not only into what you can potentially earn as a small creator, but then obviously what you could potentially be doing with that money and how to kind of budget as well. I mean, I don't pretend to be a financial expert at all, so please don't take any of my videos as financial advice. I am not qualified to do that, but I think it's nice to be able to show you my personal experience with this and show you what I personally do and my partner personally does in our situation, and then you can kind of take what you want from that. But if you're new to these videos, hi, my name is Kaylee and I'm a beauty and fashion photographer based near Sydney, Australia, but I'm also a content creator, and I started this channel a few years ago to talk about all things business, social media, freelancing and content creation. And in today's video, we're going to be specifically talking about basically what I would do after I receive a paycheck or after I receive a payment from a brand or from affiliate marketing or whatever it may be, and then kind of talk about our structure of our accounts and basically how we like to kind of have things month to month. And I think that that might give you, again, a little bit more insight into how we sort of see our income and where we think it's best placed. But obviously what we do is not necessarily going to be the best thing for another person. But again, it's just kind of that transparency thing, and you guys can kind of take a little bit more of a peek into our finances that way. So as I mentioned, I really want to cover our structure of our accounts, and that's our bank accounts essentially. I think that everyone has a very different structure on this, and I think that that's totally fine. It is a very personal thing. We do have quite a number of bank accounts, and the reason we do is because we like to be very intentional with the money that we save and to make sure that we're saving for the things that we want. But not only that, but also making sure that we're keeping that money aside for things like bills, expenses, those necessary expenses each month that we know will be up for and we need to pay. Now, I'm actually just going to talk about some of the different accounts that we actually have, the bank accounts that we have, my partner and I. And as I mentioned, we do have a few of them. We obviously have our accounts that are associated with our home loan. Now, with our home loan, we're able to have a number of offset accounts, which is really, really great. I think we have maybe a maximum of 8 that we can have at the moment, I think. And we try and make use of that, because offset accounts, when it comes to your home loan, the more money you have in those, the better, because it's going to offset the interest on your mortgage each month, which is something that we've been pretty much told for years now is the way to go by people like financial advisors and that. But again, this is not financial advice. This is just what people have told us for us in our situation and what is best for us currently. So we really like to have a number of accounts that are offset accounts and attached to our home loan. Now, the 3 main accounts that I'm going to speak about just firstly are going to be our daily transaction account, our emergency fund, and then our bills account. Now, each of these accounts do very, very different things. And the daily transaction one is actually one that we don't use, I guess, as much these days. It's more of just like that transaction account. If you need money in that account, we have a card attached to that account so we can withdraw money if we need to and move money around into there if we need to for daily expenses. Now, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in just a second and what we like to do instead of using that daily account now. But moving on to the emergency account, this is really where we like to put quite a bit of money away for emergencies, and essentially we try and build that account when we can. I think it's really important for content creators, and especially myself. I feel that I've always needed that emergency account there. You just never know when money is going to be coming in from different brands, different sponsorships. It can be all over the place and very inconsistent. So you just never know if you're going to get money on time. So it is very good to have that emergency fund, or for whatever reason, like I've spoken about on my channel before, in the last year, I have had contracts that I've lost, and that is just a very regular part of being a content creator. From time to time, you can lose contracts, or contracts will stop and end. And then suddenly you might find yourself in a position where you don't have enough money coming coming in. So emergency funds for me are really essential, and I personally feel like that's a really important thing to have for us. So the emergency fund is really important. Then we have our bills account, which is also another very important one. So maybe some of you might have already seen my budgeting video where I talked about for February, where I really go through the breakdown of our expenses and income in the month and basically budgeting for that. And then essentially all of our bills money will go into that bills account, so we can make sure that we definitely have enough money for that. So essentially our daily transaction account was mainly used for our daily expenses, or our expenses that we had budgeted each month. The bills is for those non-negotiable things that will be coming through each month. So mortgage, utilities, subscriptions, things like that we know we're going to have to pay for, that's where that will come from. And to have a standalone bills account away from savings and other accounts, making sure you've got that dedicated money aside, I think is really an important thing for us, because I feel like if the money is all in one account, I'm going to be really likely to spend that and not really remember what money is for what. So it's good to kind of separate that money for us, and we can actually see what we're owing. And then we have a few savings accounts. Now, we don't always have these savings accounts. These savings accounts change depending on what we're saving for. We have had a wedding account in the past. We've had a house account in the past. So specifically named savings accounts. And again, these are all offset accounts that I've just mentioned, savings accounts included. So at the moment, we've kind of got a general savings account that we're just putting money into if we're not really going to have a huge surplus each month, which has been tough in the cost of living crisis. I won't lie. It has been really tough to kind of get that surplus going where we can put heaps away for savings. So that savings account is really just where a lot of our extra money is getting filtered into at the moment. Otherwise, we currently do have a secondary house fund. Now, this house fund is more for things that we want to save for this house that we currently live in, but we also have plans to potentially move on to another place in the next year to 18 months or so, if we're lucky. We are in a townhouse at the moment, so it is a fairly small space, but obviously we're looking at moving on, especially with having 2 dogs and having a little bit more of a yard. We'd really love that in future. So we do have that account there at the moment. We also have an account for a van. Now, this is just really more of a pipeline dream at the moment. I have mentioned this account before, but I really feel like in the future, we would like to start putting some money aside in that account when we have that extra surplus to start saving for something like that, because I think that's something that Dan and I have always really wanted. We love traveling. We do a lot of travel vlogging, and we just kind of see us doing that in our future. So we would love to have that in the pipeline. And then we also have a dedicated account for trips or for travel. Now, I think that it's really important for us to have this account because we really love to travel, and we also find ourselves having to save quite a bit of money for travel on the regular. So this is really where all of our savings goes to if we are currently saving for any trips. And that's a really important one. We always feel like these savings accounts need to be named, and they need to be their own kind of entity almost, because it's just, I feel like it's so much more inspiring to open your bank accounts, to look at what you're saving for, actually physically see that, and then really feel motivated to save more and more for that. I feel like it's kind of like a manifesting thing. And I think it worked really well the first time around with our wedding and also with buying this house. We really just kind of saw those accounts, and every time we'd open our bank accounts or open the app, we'd be like, okay, we can do this. We got to get motivated and let's get to it, you know? So I feel like those are our main savings accounts at the moment. We don't really have any others in particular. We are not putting money in every payday to those accounts. So as I showed you in my budget breakdown for February, we really only put a portion of the money in those accounts if we can afford it. If we don't have a large surplus, a lot of that will probably go to emergency and to the savings account that I mentioned. But moving on from our offset accounts, which are attached to our home loan, we do have our own personal splurge accounts. So this is with different banks, my partner and I, and we each have a little splurge account that we sometimes will pay into if we do, again, have a bit of a surplus at the end of the month. We'll take that money and kind of divide it between us. And then we've each got our own little account that we can kind of splurge on whatever we want. This could be clothing, could be beauty, could be going to the movies, could be restaurants, like whatever we really want to spend it on, we can do that. I must admit, we have not been using our splurge accounts very often in the last year or so because, again, the cost of living has just been through the roof. So we really have had to get on top of our bills and make sure that we are not overspending on things that are not very necessary. Of course, we try and give ourselves a little bit of leeway with, eating out and just doing some basic things to kind of make life enjoyable. But at the same time, we really don't go too far with spending on things like clothing, shoes, beauty, anything like that. I really try and keep to a minimum at this point. So yeah, that splurge account hasn't been looking too healthy over the last year or so, but that's okay because we've still managed to have some pretty other amazing experiences and do a little bit of traveling, and that's really what's important to us. And then moving into my business account. So again, this is with a different bank account, different bank. I really need these accounts because again, it is just sectioning off all of my income for my business. I have a transaction account, which is where a lot of my business expenses will come out of. So this is where I'll put money for things like my regular subscriptions each month that I have to pay. So for like Flowdesk and Adobe and things like that, I make sure that my money is in this transaction account. The second account I have is for my business tax. So this is where I store all of my tax for each quarter. I pay my tax quarterly at the moment, and this is where I store all of my money for that. I have to make sure that I set that money aside because if I don't, I'm going to get a very angry letter from the tax man, and we don't want that. So really just making sure that every time I'm getting paid, I am sectioning off that tax, and that is including money for the Medicare levy as well. So that is something that in Australia we all pretty much pay as citizens for Medicare. And I think it's around 2% of your entire income each year. So it's something to be accounted for on top of tax. Now, this account I will also use for putting money aside for superannuation as well. So that is like 401k, I believe, in the US. And I believe if you're self-employed, it's not actually compulsory to put that money aside for superannuation, which is really difficult. I have to physically go and put it aside. So it is really hard to do that sometimes, especially when it's like a few $1,000s worth and you're like, oh, I could really save this money, or I could really use that money. I am wanting to get a little bit more on top of this in the next few years though, because I know that at the moment I am nearly 34 and I need to make sure that I'm not going to be essentially stealing from myself, because really that is what is happening. I'm stealing from my future self. And I don't want to do that for too much longer because it's going to really hurt in the end if we don't sort of get on top of that. So yeah, that's basically where all of that kind of money goes into that tax account. Then I have my business savings account. Now this is for any business purchases that I need to make. So if it's a new camera, new lens, new laptop, whatever it is associated with my business, I will make sure that all the savings goes into that account. And then finally, I will just quickly talk about our credit card that we have. Now our credit card we've had probably coming up close to a year now. And I will say that credit cards are not for everyone. So this is not necessarily a sign for you to go and get a credit card. I'm not going to be giving any advice around this. We just feel that having a credit card works for us, my partner and I, because of the nature of our income, and specifically mine. Dan's income comes in monthly, which is fine because mine is kind of monthly as well. And then all our bills are sort of coming out monthly. But at the same time, there's still things that might come out at certain times a month, like subscriptions that we might not have been paid yet for. So having a credit card is really, really helpful for that. And then allows us to keep all of our money in our offset accounts for as long as possible, which is exactly what you want to offset that interest on the home loan. Now, what we usually do with our credit card is we do have a Qantas credit card. So probably about a year ago, Dan and I decided that we wanted to start earning a lot more points. We travel and we love to travel so much. So we really thought that we should be making stuff like this work for us. And if we were already going to be spending money on things associated where we could get Qantas points, which is our national carrier or national airline, then we should be really trying to get as many points as possible and make that work for us. So that's why we decided to get specifically a Qantas credit card, and we put most of our expenses on there each month and pay it off at the end of each month. Now, I did mention this in another video with the Qantas points, but if you are interested in learning more about how to earn Qantas points specifically, or even I believe Velocity points, which is with our other carrier, Virgin over here in Australia, I'm going to leave an Instagram handle in the video and the description box below, and that's to go and check out All Signs Point Travel. Now, I was recommended to them, I think sometime last year on TikTok. I think I might have seen a TikTok which recommended them. It's incredible. They've got an Instagram account in particular where they put all of the tips on how to earn Qantas points really quickly and what kind of bonus deals are going on. And if you do your shopping, for example, at Woolworths, which is pretty popular over here in Australia. You can join everyday rewards and then get extra points, and then purchasing gift cards as well. They have really good like 20 times points deals and things like that. So if you kind of like getting obsessive about Qantas points and about like airline points and things like that, really good account to go and check out. I highly recommend them. That is pretty much the reason why we got so onto it last year, and we were like, no, we need to be trying to make this work for us as much as possible. And it really has so far. We've gotten quite a lot of points. So we're just kind of like banking them at the moment to kind of see what we can kind of save up for. Kaito's just decided to join the video. Hi, what are you doing? What you doing? I think he's been outside barking at the other dog next door. So yeah, we do kind of have a bit of a setup there where our credit card is utilized quite a lot, but always paid off by the end of the month because we don't want to be in any more debt. And credit cards, as I said, are not for everyone. So this is not a recommendation to go and get one if you are thinking about it or anything. Like, I think it's always good to talk to someone in the financial fields, a professional, about this kind of thing. And yeah, only sort of do this if you're comfortable with it. For Dan and I, we have had a credit card or two over the years, so we are very aware of what we need to be doing and how we need to be handling it. And it kind of works for us, like I said, with the inconsistent income that I receive each month. It's kind of a bit of a safety net along with the emergency fund, but it also means I don't have to take money out of the emergency fund continuously to pay for things, and that can stay in the offset account. But yeah, that is essentially how our accounts are set up at the moment. This is essentially what we would be looking at if we were getting paid. Then we would be looking at divvying up the money into these accounts. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of the time this doesn't really get done until the end of the month. Once our credit card is paid off, once all of our income has come through, that's actually when we get to sort of put the money in the savings accounts, for example, and that sort of thing. But yeah, otherwise, that is basically what we'd be looking at after I receive a payment. I would start filling in the budget template as in terms of like what needs to be paid, what has been paid. So for example, I would use that money to then go and pay certain bills that might be due at the time. That would essentially get paid straight onto the credit card though, because I would have already likely paid it through there first, and then that money would go to there. So then I know what exactly I've paid for. I can make sure it's all marked off in our budget template and make sure we're on track for the month. But otherwise, that is essentially how we break down our accounts as content creators. My partner is also a content creator, although he's more like a casual content creator because he obviously has a full-time job. But usually this is how it really works for me too. And especially being a full-time content creator, I think we really need to be on top of our finances these days with all of the bills that we have. And yeah, just knowing that this kind of works for us. We've been doing it this way for years and years now. We've had numerous accounts since probably like 2019. I think we really started to get our stuff together then. And that was when we started saving for a house and really putting money aside. And we just felt like we needed to do things a little bit differently. And I will say that there's not been any one person that we've looked to for financial advice, to be honest. Like, there's so many financial books out there that you can read that might help. But for example, I've read books by The Barefoot Investor, which is a really popular one here in Australia. So you might see that we've taken a couple of ideas from his book, particularly when it comes to having the emergency fund, the bills account, and even a splurge account. Those are kind of the ideas that we got from him. I quite often watch Hannah Campbell's videos, which has been really, really good. And that's one thing actually that I didn't mention is investing. And we technically don't really have an account just for investing at the moment in our savings accounts or offset accounts. Usually the savings account that we have, the general one in our offset account, if we're going to invest any money, we'll move it over there first, or we'll move it straight into our Vanguard ETF fund. So that is basically where we're investing currently. And actually through Hannah Campbell, she is a financial planner. And over the years, I've really watched a lot of her stuff here on YouTube and also read her books. I find that she's really, really good for just finding out where to kind of put your money and some of the ways that you can save extra money. She's really, really great for that. Also, it's really good to find podcasts for this kind of thing as well that really resonate with you. Another really great Australian podcast that my partner and I have listened to over the years is Equity Mates. And we started listening to them back in, I think it was like 2018, 2019. And I found them really helpful for explaining things like, shares and making it a little bit easier to understand. They obviously go very in depth with some shares and stock market information, which sometimes a little bit of that goes over my head. I kind of stick to the basics, but they they were really helpful for starting off with investing and doing things like that. So really, really highly recommend Equity Mates. But they're just a couple of recommendations and a couple of different financial kind of gurus that I've learned from over the years and my partner's learned from. But if you do want any other recommendations, I have read many more financial books. So let me know down in the comment section if you'd like me to list some more books and podcasts maybe to go and check out. But otherwise, I hope you really enjoyed this video on our account breakdown and what we kind of like to do after we've been paid, or especially me. I hope that gave a little bit more transparency over how we like to structure our finances overall. But thank you so much again for watching this video today. And if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel already, make sure you do, because I'll be posting a lot more videos like this one. Let me know down in the comment section below if you structure your bank accounts in a similar way or if you do something completely different. I would love to hear all of your thoughts down in the comments below. In the meantime, make sure to hit the notification bell to see all the updates coming up from my channel. But thank you so much as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.